All right, so we're diving into something kind of unique today and something
Yeah.
you specifically asked for, and I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. You brought up David Addue's Dear Younger Me,
Hmm.
Letters of Wisdom and Regret, right? Which I have to say, it's such a cool concept, imagining looking back on your own life and giving advice.
Yeah,
So for our deep dive today, I thought we could, pull out the juiciest bits, the parts that make you think,
absolutely.
maybe even shift your perspective a little, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, these letters are so personal and, they're so specific to Adu's own life, but
Right.
there's just something so universal, right? Like the stuff
Absolutely.
he's grappling with, the mistakes he made. I mean, we've all been there in some way.
Totally.
So yeah, I'm excited to unpack some of this.
Me too. All right, so why don't we start with the first letter? Slow down life is not a race. Like right off the bat, you get this sense of the younger self, right? Like so driven, gotta achieve, gotta constantly be moving forward, and like measuring their worth through accomplishments.
Right.
Does that resonate with you at all? I know I've been there.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost like a default setting these days, right? Like the constant push for productivity, got to be doing something, got to be achieving the next thing. And what's so powerful about this letter is how the older self really pushes back on that. Like, no, no, no. Life is a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah.
It's such a simple shift in thinking, but it's huge.
Yeah. Why do you think that analogy, the marathon versus a sprint? I mean, it's so simple, but why does it work?
Well, I think it's because a sprint,
Yeah.
right? It's all about that burst of energy,
Right.
Just get to the finish line, doesn't matter what happens in between, right?
Yeah, yeah. You're just like, head down.
Exactly. But a marathon, you got to pace yourself.
Right.
You have to actually have to look around, enjoy the scenery, or you're going to burn out.
You're going to hit a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where the regret comes in this letter. The older self is like, man, I miss so much. I miss sunsets. I miss real connections because I was so focused on the next goal.
I mean, there's that line in there. It says, I was always in a hurry to be someone, to do something, to reach somewhere, only to realize that in my haste, I lost pieces of myself.
Oh, that is such a good
I
line.
know, right? It just hits you.
It really does. And it makes you think, like in our own lives right now, what are we missing? What are we so focused on that we're not seeing what's right in front of us? It doesn't mean we have to give up on our
Yeah.
goals.
Right, right. It's not about that.
It's about how we define success.
Right.
Maybe we need to broaden that definition a little bit.
I love that. And the letter even says, success is not just about reaching the top. It's about enjoying the journey.
Yes.
Right. It's about actually living life, not just, racing through it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think the older self really brings this home when he starts talking about the simple things like, the laughter shared with a friend, the warmth of a hug, the peace of a quiet morning. These aren't these huge achievements you have to work for.
No.
They're the everyday moments, the little things.
Right. The stuff that makes up a life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the ones we miss when we're so busy striving.
Yeah.
So maybe what we're really talking about here is presence,
Uh,
actually being present in the moment.
I like that. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from this letter is that it's okay to pause.
Yeah.
Like, the world won't end if you stop and appreciate something small.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost counterintuitive, in our go, go, go culture.
Right, right.
Okay, so let's move on to letter two. Love, but don't lose yourself. Now, this one gets into relationships, which can be messy.
Absolutely.
And it's really about this need for self-preservation within those relationships. The younger self, it sounds like they love hard.
Yeah.
Commit fully. Even when things are tough, give endlessly.
Right, right. And it's so common, isn't it?
I think so.
That need to give, to nurture the people we love.
Yeah.
But what's interesting here is the older self kind of realizing, wait a minute, there's a cost to that,
Uh-huh.
especially when it's not reciprocated
Right.
or when the relationship itself is just not healthy.
Right.
And they talk about staying in these soul-fading situations and giving to people who just didn't deserve it.
Yeah, it makes you think about boundaries.
Mm.
Like, do we have them? Do we even know how to set them?
Totally. And it challenges that idea we often have that love equals complete selflessness to the
Uh-huh.
point where you sacrifice your own well-being. And the advice in the letter is so blunt, right? The right person will never require you to lose yourself in order to love them.
So good.
I mean, that is a powerful statement.
It is.
Real love, healthy love, it should make you stronger, not weaker. It should support you, not drain you. And the letter says, love should feel like home, not a battlefield. Love should uplift, not suffocate.
Wow. Which part of that really speaks to you?
I think that idea of home is so powerful. Like, you can be yourself completely, right? You feel safe, you feel nurtured, and the contrast with battlefield is so striking.
Right, because relationships shouldn't be a constant struggle.
Exactly.
And then the letter lists these red flags, begging for attention, kindness, or respect.
Yes, yes, and it's so clear.
Like those are warnings.
They are.
And the advice is just as straightforward. Walk away.
Yes,
Know your worth.
absolutely.
I mean, it all comes back to self-love, right?
It really does. And it's not selfish, like some people might say. It's actually the foundation for healthy relationships with anyone else.
I love how the letter ends, too. It says, you deserve the love you give. Love with all your heart, but never at the expense of your own peace. And remember, the greatest love you will ever experience is the love you give yourself.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So good. It really shifts that focus inward.
Yeah. You got to fill your own cup first.
Exactly.
Okay, letter 3. This one's about friendship, and the title is pretty direct. Not everyone you call a friend is one.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. It sounds like the younger self was maybe a little too trusting, believed in loyalty that wasn't real,
Right.
sharing too much with people who just didn't care.
Yeah, and that feeling of being let down
Right.
when you needed support and it wasn't there, it's just awful.
Yeah, have you experienced that kind of disconnect in a friendship before?
I mean, who hasn't, right?
It's so common.
It is. And I think the letter really speaks to that vulnerability we have, especially when we're younger. We just take things at face value. We assume everyone's on the same page about how deep the connection is, and that's just not always the case.
Yeah, and the betrayal they describe. It's not just about someone not being there for you.
Right.
It's about realizing there was never that depth of caring in the first place.
Exactly.
Like it was all surface level.
It's a mismatch in the level of investment.
And the older self's advice is, be careful with your trust. Some people will love you only for what you can do for them. Others will stand by you only when it's convenient.
Oof, that is hard, but so true.
Yeah, tough but true. Like knowing the difference between a real friend and someone who's just there for the good times, that's huge.
It is. And what I find so insightful here is that it's not about how long you've known someone.
Right.
It's about who shows up for you.
Right.
Like the letter says, friendship isn't about how long you've known someone. It's about who stands by you when you need them. Who's there for you when things get tough, not just for the celebrations. So what are the qualities you value most in a friend?
Oh, for me, it's definitely that unwavering support, like knowing someone's got your back no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
And the letter talks about surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your wins.
Absolutely.
But also, offer comfort and strength when you're going through a hard time.
Absolutely. True friends, they're there for all of it.
Yeah. And they're rare. Like the letter says, cherish those people.
Yeah.
And there's this really interesting perspective on what to do with the pain of betrayal.
Yeah, how to deal with that hurt.
Exactly. Like instead of getting cynical and jaded, the letter suggests using it as a way to learn.
To gain wisdom.
Yeah. And I love the last line about friendship. You will lose people, and it will hurt. But the ones who remain, they are your real family.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right?
It's like sometimes losing people helps you see who really matter.
Yeah, it clarifies things.
Exactly.
Okay, so last letter, letter 4. Pain is a teacher. Learn from it. This one's about, suffering, right? Which none of us want to deal with.
Right, but it's part of life, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately. And I think this letter offers a really unique way to look at it. The younger self, the letter acknowledges that they're going to face heartache, disappointment, unfairness.
It's inevitable, right?
It is. Like, it's part of being human.
Yeah.
And I love that the letter doesn't try to sugarcoat it or pretend it doesn't hurt.
Right.
But it does encourage us to see pain as a potential opportunity.
To learn and grow, yeah.
Exactly. Like the older self says, pain is also a teacher. It will teach you who you are. It will show you what you're capable of surviving. It will shape you in ways that joy never could.
Oh, I love that.
Right. It's like our struggles can actually reveal our strength.
Yes, exactly.
Like we discover how resilient we are.
And the letter even uses this image of scars.
Mm-hmm.
Every scar you carry will have a story, and every wound will remind you that you were strong enough to heal.
It's true. Like those scars, They tell a story,
They do, they do.
but they also show that we healed.
They do, you know.
We
We
survived.
survived, we got through it. So why do you think it's so hard to see pain as a teacher when we're in the middle of it?
I think it's just human nature, right? To want to avoid pain, to protect ourselves.
It's instinct.
Yeah. But the older self says, sit with it, feel it, let it teach you. Because pain, when embraced, turns into wisdom.
So good. But it's hard, isn't it?
It is hard. It takes a real shift in thinking. Like seeing pain not as the end of the road, but as like a path to something deeper.
To understanding, to growth.
Yeah, exactly.
And the letter ends on such a hopeful note.
Yeah.
One day, the things that broke you will become the very things that make you. You will not just survive, you will thrive.
Powerful, right?
Steve, so powerful.
Like our wounds can actually make us stronger.
They can. And that last line, hold on, you are stronger than you know.
So good. So, I mean, looking back at these 4 letters, there's so much here.
So much wisdom.
Yeah, we talked about slowing down, enjoying the journey,
Being present.
being present, setting boundaries in relationships, recognizing real friendship versus, the fake stuff.
Absolutely. And realizing that pain, as hard as it is, can actually help us grow.
Yeah. And ultimately, it seems like it all comes back to that core message David Adu leaves us with at the end of the book.
Which is?
You are enough. Just as you are, with all your imperfections, all your aspirations, all your vulnerabilities, you are inherently enough.
That's so good.
It's such a simple message, but it's so powerful. So for you listening right now, think about which of these younger self perspectives really resonates with you,
Yeah.
Where are you at in your life?
Yeah.
And what's one small change you could make today that your older self would thank you for later? That's what David Adu wanted these letters to do, right? Offer a little guidance, a little comfort, remind us that we're all in this together. And, hopefully this deep dive gave you some things to think about.
I think it did.
Me too.